Hello, my name is Jennifer Shlomovich, and I am a vegan confidence coach. I specialize in helping vegans eliminate people-pleasing so they can confidently be themselves and navigate the challenges of having a lifestyle different from the people around them. Here on my channel, The Confident Vegan, I share a variety of supportive resources, including inspiring interviews and recipe videos. Today, we're going to talk about vegan parenting with my special guest, Angelica Williams. Angelica is a visionary vegan hospitality consultant at Green Luxury Living, which is dedicated to elevating hospitality establishments to new heights. With a keen focus on creating an inclusive atmosphere for vegan, allergy-conscious, and sustainably minded patrons, Angelica goes beyond the ordinary, meticulously creating experiences that resonate with the needs and desires of the contemporary guest. She enjoys entertaining at home, traveling, and learning about new cultures, especially through food. Angelica believes in living a beautiful life while being kind to fellow humans, animals, and the planet. Welcome, Angelica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you here. I'm so glad we connected a while back. We've had a couple of great conversations. I know you're working on some amazing things, and I'm excited to have you share all of that with my viewers, as well as tips on vegan parenting, because that's a topic I have wanted to cover more in depth on my channel, and have more supportive resources on that topic. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited.
So, oh, sorry. So what is your vegan story?
Yeah, about 14 years ago, I was watching the news in the morning, as one does, and I noticed that they were talking about an egg farm that was being fined for cruelty. And, innocent me was thinking, what does that even mean? Like, what could be happening in an egg farm? And there's the chickens laying eggs all day and they're being collected, and that's it. And that's what I had in my mind. And so I got curious about it and I did some research to find out what that meant and found out what actually happens in an egg farm. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm not eating eggs anymore. And then it got me thinking, well, what about the other animals I'm consuming, milk and obviously meat. And so I started doing lots of digging and figured out what was actually happening behind the scenes. And that's when I learned about factory farming and what was actually happening to the animals, the dairy cows, and obviously chickens in egg farms. And so I basically decided I couldn't eat it anymore. And I made a really quick transition to being vegan. So it was kind of like overnight, pretty much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it usually takes people time to transition. Like it took me like a couple years to fully transition, but once in a while I do talk with someone who was able to make that transition really quickly. How long
Yeah.
have you been vegan?
So almost 14 years now.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. And and then what inspired you to get into the work that you're now doing?
Yeah, so obviously, once I transitioned, I wasn't doing anything related to veganism or anything of the sort. And I eventually got into events and I really enjoyed that type of work. Before that, I was doing business and business development and marketing. And once I got into events as a vegan, it was interesting because here I was ordering, meat dishes for the particular events I was doing, and it just never felt aligned. So I wasn't super happy about that portion, even though I loved everything else about it.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, once my son was born, I was able to quit my job and stay with him. And I started looking into different things I could be doing with my life instead of, going back to working for someone that, wasn't aligned with my values, basically. And so from there, I started looking at possibly creating retreats and then I started a blog about green living in style. And that sort of led me to where I am today, which is working in vegan hospitality. So helping businesses to create events and experiences for their clients where everyone is included. And it's a seamless transition and a seamless way to offer, vegan dishes, allergy-friendly dishes to clients where everybody feels like this was an actual well thought out process and not just a salad put together in the back. And yeah, so basically, I feel that my transition to veganism is kind of where it took me to where I am today. But it's been a process, and veganism was also, what really opened my eyes to the way I live today, which is thinking about not just the food that I consume, but everything else I consume in my life. So what I buy for my home, how, I entertain, like you said, I love entertaining, how I travel and where I travel. So all these things just kind of, started with me looking at that particular transition in my life of being vegan and then where I am today. And, it's just been a great thing, just really opened my eyes and made me aware of so many things about how to live a better life, not just for myself, but for animals, obviously, and the planet.
Isn't it interesting how when we become vegan, we start finding other ways to bring it into what we do. And I
Yeah.
think too, because it's about aligning with our values. And I
Yeah.
started getting into coaching around the same time I became vegan. And then it took me a few years where I was kind of like, I wish I could combine the two. And then it took me another few years to figure out how.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, because the work that you're doing is so important because I know what it's like to be a vegan and not feel included someplace. And it really doesn't take a lot for a restaurant to have those options. And there are places like I used to live in New York City. I moved out last year, but I live still nearby. And so I go into the city about once a month, and there's no shortage of either restaurants that are all vegan or restaurants that have vegan options that go beyond, just a salad, right?
Yes.
And it really and it's so great when you're able to have a place where everyone can feel included because I know sometimes I have non-vegan friends and family who they'll go to a vegan restaurant with me, but sometimes they don't want to. And so it's
Mhm.
helpful when you can have a place where there's
Yeah.
something for everyone and everyone doesn't feel like they're being deprived. And it's really great that you're showing others, how helping them with that transition and seeing the value of it. And also with allergies too, because a lot of people who are allergic to dairy and eggs,
Yes.
they will happily go to a vegan restaurant because they know there's no worry of consuming that. So it also helps the allergy community as well when they make those changes.
Yes. And also another aspect of this is restaurants that are moving to a more planet conscious and sustainable practices, transitioning to having more vegan dishes or plant-based dishes are moving actually towards that type of sustainability because anytime you eliminate meat and dairy and eggs from your menu, you're actually creating a more sustainable menu. So sometimes, that's the motivation for some establishments and events. A lot of times people are looking to have a more sustainable wedding. A lot of events are usually known for being wasteful, and there's a lot of stigma about that events are wasteful when they can be. But I feel like there's so many ways that event planners are now moving towards a more sustainable way of creating events. And one of them is creating mostly of their menu vegan, and if not all of it. So that's one of the main ways to quickly and easily, make your event and restaurant more sustainable as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because that's the thing for me. When I became vegan, it started off with health stuff, and then it was the animals as really started to understand what goes on in animal agriculture. I mean, we know where meat comes from, but there was that disconnect that I had, and a lot of other vegans I've spoken to, we all have that like cognitive dissonance, and then something clicks for us. And then it was also the environment. And and then there's, there are the critics who are like, well, veganism isn't perfect, but it's an improvement, it's progress. And so that's the thing that I always emphasize is it's important to make progress. Any little action that we take is going to benefit, because there's, what is it, like 9 billion people on this planet? It's like 8 or 9 billion, something like that, right? If everyone just did some small action that improved the planet in some way, then it would have a really big ripple effect, whatever that small action is. And so,
Yes.
I've talked to other people too, like, what's the point in me recycling? It doesn't make a difference. Or, but again, if everyone has that attitude, then of course it's not gonna change, right?
Yeah. And, I feel like in our planet, we're so connected in ways that if something happens here, we can absolutely have an effect on the other side of the planet. And
Yeah.
so if we are being conscious about what we're doing and making sure that whatever we're doing is a positive effect for the other side of the planet, that's what
Yeah.
we're looking for. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just like you said, it's progress is great, because anything we do, sometimes we will mess up. Sometimes, with families, not everybody's on board. You might be, trying to do different things, and then your other family members are not participating like you are. And so instead of, creating conflict or um, feeling discouraged, it's usually helpful to, okay, you do what you can and lead by example, because a lot of times people will see what you're doing and be curious and be like, oh, I never thought of doing this
Mhm.
way. Or I never thought vegan food could be so delicious, even though vegan food is just food. But, vegan dishes that, are usually traditional dishes that are veganized, for example, usually that's when people are surprised, like, oh, I didn't know it could taste this way. And all those little things, open up people's ideas and minds of to what is possible. And so making sure that we just do, our best and always be curious and striving to, what else can I do differently? Maybe as soon as I finish this product, I can buy a better alternative for my home, something that is more natural, that's good for me and also for the home and for the animals, and for the planet in general. So always looking for ways to improve, and you can always start small. And, especially at home, you can pick like a room of your house and decide, okay, I'm gonna work on this room. And then as soon as you finish products, because you also don't want to just toss everything, and because that's actually not as sustainable. So you want to finish what you have. And then when you're ready to purchase something new, look for a better alternative. Obviously, always looking for something cruelty-free and vegan would be my recommendation. And then, looking to make sure that it's maybe the packaging is sustainable, and you can either recycle it or you can compost it, or look for products that already have ways to use less resources. So anything that does not use water is much more sustainable than something that comes with water, or something more concentrated that you can add your own water to. So there's always like little things that you can look for. And, sometimes it does take a lot of research. And I've I've always been very curious about these things and did a ton of research. So I do have information on my website as well about products and things that, I've tried that I like, and I feel like I haven't updated recently, so there's probably a lot more that I could include for sure. But just looking for things and, being curious and seeing, okay, maybe this person is doing something and that I could try next time. And that might not work for you either. So there's also that is don't be discouraged if for some reason you try something and then it's like, oh, okay, I did not like this process because it's not for everyone, especially things like composting. It can be
Hmm.
very tricky for people. Um, and you might not find the type that works for you until you try several of them. And so not being discouraged and always, continuing to be curious about it and finding ways to do whatever you're doing better.
Yeah, it's that progress over perfection. And it's true, like when I first started looking into veganism, well, it all started because I was sensitive to dairy, I discovered, and I was looking up dairy-free recipes, and a lot of vegan recipes had come up. And
Uh-huh.
I discovered all this exciting food. Like seasonings and herbs and spice blends that I never used before in cooking. And I just love the creativity in making desserts that were healthier. And yes, there's unhealthy
Yeah.
vegan desserts as well, but
Right.
um, yeah, I like, you can make brownies out of sweet potatoes or black beans or
Yeah.
cheesecake using tofu, and it's all in what you flavor it with and season it with. And tofu's not boring. You can do so many amazing things. It's all about what you season it with. And
Mhm.
it really connected with my creativity and just lit me up just seeing all these different things. And then I started buying a lot of different cookbooks. I still buy cookbooks. I don't need any more, but I, I still do buy them if they have something different to offer.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be fun to experiment and just try
Mhm.
something new. And change is uncomfortable, especially in the
Yeah.
beginning. When I that first month where I fully committed to being vegan, it was really uncomfortable and I was a little cranky. But at the same time, I was very committed and connected to my why I was doing it. And
Yes.
eventually it became second nature. And so the same thing can happen with little actions that we can take that can support the environment. And just,
Mhm.
like you said, there's a lot of different products, so it's great. At the end, I'll ask you to share your website info, and I'll also be including that in the notes below this video. So anyone watching who wants to check out all the resources that Angelica has on there, that sounds like a really great resource to help people at least know where to start.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. I feel like anything, helps, especially in the beginning. And I love what you said about knowing your why, because the motivation of why you're doing what you're doing is really important. So for me, when I knew I wanted to do that for the animals, that's all I had to think about was, okay, if I eat this thing, is somebody gonna get hurt? And once if the answer is yes, okay, I'm not having it. And um, it was an easy way for me to do this, but I know other people feel motivation differently. Sometimes it is health related, and sometimes it is because of the planet. And for me now, I have all three reasons, but it started with one of them. And so, just thinking of that every time I would make a choice really helped me, stay with it. And I would say also finding support and being around others that understand you, because it was quite lonely for me in the beginning, not knowing other vegans. That was something super
Yeah.
foreign to me. And, I grew up, I'm not even knowing a vegetarian where I was. So it was something very, strange. But and then looking for support and looking for others. Are there vegans around me? Or at the time I wasn't really looking online. But I did find groups, that happened to be in my community, and that was super helpful to feel like, okay, does make sense, and it's okay for me to be on this journey, because I sort of needed validation in the beginning to be like, am I crazy? Am I
Yeah.
gonna hurt my health, or whatever it is that people were telling me that, was not gonna be okay. And then hearing from people that have been doing this longer than me, and them validating that, yes, it's okay, and you are doing the right thing. So that's also, a great way to stick to your why, and stay motivated when you might be like, why am I the only one in the world doing this?
Yeah, it can feel very lonely and isolating. That's why I earlier this year created a vegan community called the Vegan Sip and Chat. That's free. So anyone watching who wants to join, I'll also include the link in the notes below. But yeah, I'm the only vegan in my household. So I, my husband's supportive of it, but it's challenging like with other family settings.
Yes.
And just, getting all the questions and all the comments. And
Yeah.
in the beginning, that's what kept me back from fully committing to veganism. I was afraid of how people were going to judge me. And there was an aspect of me, like I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I've healed through a lot of those qualities, but there was still that residue I had, I guess, that was kind of like, oh my God, what are people going to say? I don't want to inconvenience people. And then I figured it out eventually. And I survived the comments, and I learned to work through them and address them and embrace them. And sometimes I still get frustrated, but I work through it. And that's why I created this group, because it's for vegans and aspiring vegans who feel like they need that extra support and need that safe space. Um, and there's so many other communities. If you go on Meetup, there's a lot of different local ones. So wherever anyone's located, I'm sure there's something. And if there's nothing in person locally, there's a lot of online communities. And like Facebook has a lot of groups on there too that can be helpful. And it certainly has evolved a lot, I think, even more so in the past 5 years. Like I've been vegan over 7 years, and I've seen, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, like a really big increase and more support out there for the vegan community. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because finding that support is so important.
Yeah, and I love that your group is about, not just vegans, but also aspiring vegans, because one little story that I want to share is that when I first started getting involved, went vegan and then looked for groups and things, I found an animal sanctuary near my house. And I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna go meet other vegans and volunteer, just started getting involved and learning all the things. And they had all kinds of animals. They had rescued pigs, they had rescued horses, they had lots of chickens, all types of random animals. And they were giving away the eggs from the chickens to any volunteer that wanted them, because obviously the chickens were laying eggs. And I was about 2 months into my journey, and they gave me some eggs, and I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna use them. And which is now interesting, to think back. It's like, oh, a vegan using eggs. But at the time, it felt okay, because I was still used to eating, 2 months ago, I was eating eggs. And I wasn't like repulsed by it like I am today. But so when they gave me the eggs, I thought it was okay for me to eat them, because I knew where they were coming from, and I wasn't worried about, the chickens being mistreated like I was when I first went vegan. And a lot of vegans, were really basically appalled by it. And I was so confused. I was like, why is this not okay? Because here I am, I consider myself a vegan, and I know where this egg came from. And it's not because they are farming these chickens. They just happen to live there, and they're laying their eggs around. And, in my mind, I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. But I was in a vegan group that kicked me out because of it.
Wow.
And Yeah, so it was online, so it's not like I knew them like in person, but still it's like they said I was changing the definition of veganism. I was like, okay, maybe they have a point about that, but also they were not welcoming or understanding of what I was trying to say. So I felt kind of isolated by that. I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. Like I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing. Here I am thinking I'm doing the right thing. And then because I ate those eggs, now I'm not. And so in the beginning, it was kind of hard to navigate some of these things. And eventually what happened is that I don't, I, I wouldn't eat the eggs anymore. Like, even though they were from that place, I was just like, oh, I just don't feel good about it. Like, I don't really
Mhm.
want it. And I feel that that's how a lot of transitions happens. Like, where it's coming from, especially with people that give up cheese later, they know where it's coming from. But at one point it just hits you and you're like, I don't really want this anymore. And it's okay to like take that period of time, even if you call yourself vegan or whatever. Um, I don't think we should judge people in that way, like using all the labels and all this stuff and being so strict about things. As long as people know that they're moving, towards a certain way and they're doing it for the right reasons. So I don't know. It was just like an interesting, situation that happened for me. And so that's why I was saying that I like how people feel comfortable in your group to talk about these things. And, I'm still eating whatever. And, nobody's judging them or kicking them out of the group because they did that. So I love that. And I think that's so helpful.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your story because that was also part of the my inspiration for it because I saw how hostile other vegans can be when people aren't vegan like them. And
Yeah.
I wanted an inclusive space to support people wherever they are in their journey. I have a common thing that I find that people struggle with is giving up dairy and cheese, like especially cheese. And so or I've had members who are mostly vegan, but then like when it comes to family events or going out once in a while, they'll have something, maybe not meat, but like dairy. So yeah, everyone's going to be on their journey. It took me time to get there, and then I was vegan. At one point I was vegan for a couple months to try it out, and then I was having some health stuff. I had to figure out the right balance. So I
Mhm.
incorporated fish again
Mhm.
and I went to like pescatarian and minus the dairy because I noticed it just didn't I didn't feel good having it. And then I started having an aversion to the fish, and then I was able to like fully let it all go. And sometimes you have to kind of like go back and forth a couple
Mhm.
times before you're fully there.
Yeah.
But whatever the process is, there's no right or wrong. And I feel like
Yeah.
everyone's journey needs to be honored and needs space for. So that's
Yeah.
the mission to the community
Yeah.
I created. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you had shared with me that you are working on a book. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I love experiences and especially food related.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I love very much is afternoon tea and all the things that come with it. And, especially here in the United States, it's really hard to find vegan afternoon tea that has, you know, really high standard for desserts and other pastries and savories. So it's always been something like that I felt was lacking. And, if you go to London, they do have amazing desserts and things, but unfortunately here in the United States, not so much. And so I always find myself like trying to create my own because I can't just go out and enjoy a vegan afternoon tea. And so that was the idea for this book is creating a vegan afternoon tea book that not only celebrates, the different recipes in a way that people can enjoy beautiful and delicious food that would be perfect for this type of event, but also looking at different cultures. And so I took a little twist around because I love travel and I love different cultures and different foods. And I'm always curious about, spices and, how people create amazing dishes. And so my idea for this book is to actually create different afternoon teas that are inspired by different cultures. So, I'm going to have the traditional one as from, the UK, I would say. And then some other ones that I'm incorporating is a Brazilian one because I grew up in Brazil. So I'm going to have like a Brazilian inspired afternoon tea. And then probably an Indian one, a Turkish one, and there's going to be French one, probably Italian. So it just depends. Like I'm still working out all the countries, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with recipe developers from those countries. So other vegans that, because I have some recipes and things, but I'm not like a chef per se, or so I wanted to work with them to make it more authentic and, it's still inspired. It's not exactly, what they would make, but it will be, the idea is that it's still going to be the three tiers of the traditional afternoon tea. So you would have your desserts, you would have your biscuits, which is the scones in British English, and then the savories, and then the different types of teas that go with that particular culture. So, so yeah, so I'm excited to put this together and hopefully have it out sometime next year is my goal at this point. But we'll see what happens. And another thing that's actually come because of this is I am having a vegan afternoon tea event this fall that's going to
Oh,
be
great.
here. Yeah, so I'm partnering with a vegan pastry chef from the UK, and she's going to be coming here. We're going to be putting this event together. So be on the lookout for more information on my website about it. But I'm excited to actually create an event where other vegans and people that have allergies can come and just enjoy a beautiful event with, amazing desserts that taste delicious and are also with gluten-free options, so just we thought of all the things basically. And we just want to make sure that people could enjoy this experience and have fun with it. So yeah.
That sounds exciting. I wish I was in Florida. You're located
You can come
because I would
visit.
love to come to that. That sounds amazing. And I love how it's inclusive for people who have gluten allergies or sensitivities also. And
Yes.
you're so right because there's places in New York City that offer afternoon teas, and I've always wanted to try it. But they're like sometimes they might have like an option like a scone or something, but I want the nice
Right.
three-tiered experience of different
Yes.
things to have. And so it's definitely something I've always wanted to try, and I'm really excited for when your book comes out because I'll definitely get it and add it to my cookbook collection for sure.
Yay.
But
That's
yeah, I
great.
think that's something that's much needed and such a fun way too to learn about different cultures as well. I
Mhm.
mean, food is a great way to learn about different cultures and for so many reasons, the spices, the traditions,
Yeah.
and food is a great way to bring people together and just learn from one another. So I think what you're doing is such a great idea and I'm
Oh,
excited
thank
for when it
you.
comes out.
Thank you. Yes, I'm super excited too. And yeah, and I would love, we'll see how this first afternoon tea starts. But once we do this, I would love to bring it to different cities as well. So that will be my goal because, yeah, exactly like I said, it's just, it's so different when you are able to sit and enjoy like an entire meal that
Hmm.
was thoughtfully created, where you can actually enjoy everything because you have a different lifestyle or different needs and you're not feeling excluded or looking at the person next to you that order the traditional, dishes and they have really beautiful, delicious options. And you're like, oh, with your sad little options. So that's, the whole idea is to take care of that and make sure everybody feels like, yeah, they're included and they have a seat at the table.
That's great. And yeah, vegan desserts taste just like non-vegan desserts, if not even better. I've had
Yeah.
non-vegan friends go to vegan restaurants with me, and they're always like surprised at how good the food is. But the thing that always shocks them the most is when dessert comes out. And they don't like, especially like vegan cheesecake. Like that can
Yeah.
be like the non-vegan cheesecake with dairy can feel so heavy in your stomach, and the vegan
Yes.
cheesecake is much lighter. And that's always been a comment that non-vegans have made to me when we've gone to a vegan restaurant, and they've noticed the difference on how the desserts are so flavorful, but don't have the same impact on their digestive system. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
important to
agree.
show that.
I agree. Like I feel that, so many of the traditional desserts, especially they're so heavy in dairy and butter and,
Yeah.
those types of things that when you actually taste a vegan dessert and it's so much healthier in that way, even if you are using oils and other things, simply because, you're using tofu perhaps, or you're using nuts, you're using fruits and other things that create, super indulgent looking desserts that taste amazing, but they're so light and they don't,
Hmm.
they leave you feeling so much better than when you have like a really traditional, dessert with, especially with the dairy. I feel like the dairy is one of the main things that messes people up, even if you're not, lactose intolerant. It can still be quite heavy for your system. So yeah, I agree completely. It's so much better when you get to eat like, and not just a beautiful dessert, but also delicious and
Hmm.
it leaves you feeling lighter. It's a win-win for everybody.
Definitely. And any dessert you can think of has been veganized. I've had vegan tiramisu. I've had vegan
Mhm.
ice cream sundaes. I have vegan cheesecake. I've had vegan cannolis. There's whatever it
Yeah.
is, you can find a vegan version of it or a recipe to make it. So you
Mhm.
don't have to lack on good desserts when you
No,
go
not at
vegan.
all. And that's the our goal with this event, is that to show how you can actually enjoy these desserts and savories, and you're not missing out on presentation. So, places that are like in five-star type hotels can have this type of beautiful presentation, and that is actually going to taste good, and then, not have all the allergens that are common in the traditional desserts. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Definitely, it really is. And even like you said before, like even if you're not allergic or can't eat dairy, it seemed dairy is like the worst thing. I mean, I was
Yeah.
sensitive to it. I was having skin issues from it. And when I gave it up for 30 days as an experiment,
Mm.
I realized it was making me feel bad in ways that I didn't even realize it was making me feel bad. Like that was just my normal way of operating and feeling. And I didn't realize that
Yeah.
until I gave up dairy. And then
Right.
when I tried it, like after that month period, and I tried it, I was just like, eh. Like, I was like extra sensitive to it. And
Yeah.
before I went fully vegan, I would have it here and there. But
Uh-huh.
that was the first thing that was easy for me to let go of because I just did not like how it made me feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see your book and hear all about your event. I think it's such a great idea.
Thank you.
I wanted to shift gears now to talk more about vegan parenting because you are a vegan parent
Yeah.
and you're raising your son vegan. And so, can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, so he's 10 years old now, and he's been vegan since birth. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it was lonely in the beginning because, again, I didn't really know other parents that were vegan. Um, and sometimes it could be hard going to the doctor's office and, having them question your choice of raising a vegan child.
Sure.
Um, and so, but he was always healthy, and um, there was never anything that they, would be create an alarm or whatever reason for them to doubt the diet, even though many times they would suggest things like, why don't you feed him some eggs, or there was always these types of suggestions, or how about, adding some dairy or, those things. And I would not do it, obviously, but it's just really, and this was like the most progressive doctors I could find around me. So I was actually, not just going to just any doctor. I was going to doctors that supposedly were more progressive, and they were still suggesting certain things. And I understand now that it comes from them really not knowing much about nutrition. It's
Mhm.
something that, usually doctors don't learn a lot about this in medical school. So now I have a better understanding. So everything in hindsight, is different. But at the time, it was definitely frustrating to hear those things. And then sometimes I would doubt myself as am I doing him a disservice by doing this? Am I doing something wrong? So you go through all those things as well. And um, since he was my first child and he's my only child, but it's like you don't really know, like, is this normal? Like, what do I do? And so definitely there was a period of that. But I feel that we, he's completely healthy and he's 10 now, so obviously it's okay. And yeah, so I have no doubt that I did the right thing for him. So
Yeah, it's so important that we do the things that are in alignment with who we are. Before I named my channel A Confident Vegan, it used to be Confidently Be You because I wanted to create supportive resources for people to confidently be themselves and make decisions that are right for themselves without letting the noise from the comments of other people and the judgment of other
yeah.
people get in their way. And then I fused that into veganism and rebranded it to the Confident Vegan back in October last year. And yeah, it's so, especially now, like now, I think too with the nutrition, a lot of people when they were a lot of doctors when they were in medical school
Mm.
got different nutrition information that has since changed, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
lot more out there now. I think in the past 10, 15 years, like with Forks Over Knives and the China study and all the information around that,
Yeah.
like information changes, right? What we know and understand changes. At one point, people didn't think smoking caused cancer, right? And then
Right.
there was new information, right? And
Exactly.
so I got that. I recently read the book How to Argue with a Meat Eater by Ed Winters, who goes by Earthling Ed. And it's not about really arguing with people. It just gives information and facts that that support veganism because there's always some kind of claim, there's a lot of different arguments people make against veganism, and
Yeah.
he has the information to contradict that. So one of the things that he brought up, which was a really good point, was about smoking and how people didn't have the information. And at the time too, the industry didn't want to um, shine a light on that information too. It took a while before it fully came out
Hmm.
and was understood. And so it's the same thing with nutrition, right? There's what we know in the moment, and then there's always more information as
Hmm.
science changes, there's even just look at what's gone on in the medical industry. I mean, there's so many powerful surgeries that can be done that couldn't be done, 10 years ago, or treatments. So it's
Yeah.
always advancing.
Yes.
And nutrition is also advancing. And so what we might have thought was the healthy diet at one point,
Yeah.
once you get more information over time,
Hmm.
you can see that. So it takes time, I think, for doctors to fully catch up with that. And so
Yeah.
it's understandable that that can feel lonely and isolating when you don't have other parents around you going through what you're going through, and you
Hmm.
have doctors who are going by what they learned in school, which is a bit outdated because things have changed.
Yeah, and you know, you want to trust your doctor, and then at the same time, it's like, oh, they're contradicting on what you read, because obviously as a vegan, you're always like reading about things and trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out things on your own. So um, I had done a lot of research, and I feel like overall, as long as you do just like what you do for yourself as a vegan, you give yourself a balanced diet and you just try to do a variety of things. And I feel like that would be the same, for kids, is just giving them a variety of things. And sometimes, yes, kids can be picky. Um, my son is definitely picky. And so when he was younger, it was definitely easier to feed him certain things. And I feel like there's different layers to parenting, because you have this particular layer, but then you also have, oh, what is the best way to, let's say, give him vegetables? There's the school of thought about, don't hide the vegetables, let them see all the vegetables. And then other parents like, no, no, you just put everything in a sauce and you give them the sauce in a mac and cheese type thing. And they don't need to know they're eating all these things, So there's, you're always navigating all kinds of different things at the same time. And I feel like as long as you do, what works for you, yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like if they don't see the vegetables and you just put everything in a sauce and they ate it, that's great. Like, just go with that, like it does not matter, because I feel like as they get older, their taste buds change anyways. There's going to be things that they didn't like early on that they're going to like later. And, I do wish my son would eat certain things, but every now and then he surprises me. And I'm like, wow, he's actually trying that and he liked it. And, I'm like, this is great, so you just never know like how it's gonna show up. And now we live in a time that we have so many varieties of vegan food options. And I'm not opposed to, the processed vegan meats or whatever. Especially for kids who are among other non-vegan children. I don't know that there's any other vegan kids in my kids' school, for example, but they don't really have like a lunch program. So they all bring their own food. So, that's good for us. But he did take things like, vegan chicken with him, and it looks
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same as the other kids' food. So he's never, at least he's never expressed to me that he's being teased or anybody question, what he eats. And so we've been lucky about that. I know it can happen sometimes, but we've never had anybody, question what he's eating or why he's eating that. And I feel like, we've been lucky with a lot of these things, especially um, other situations where we would go to a birthday party and, there's cake and other foods and nothing is vegan. We would bring our own cupcake. And then when it was cake time, he would eat his cupcake and the other kids would eat their cake. And nobody was doing anything. Like nobody said anything. The kids were not mean. I was always like, this is great, And so he always felt like he was just like everybody else. He was eating something different. He always knew, whatever he's eating is vegan. Like he knew there was a difference, he knew there wasn't any animal products. And maybe, I don't know how the extent of what he actually understood at the time, but
Mm-hmm.
he always knew it was like, okay, we don't eat that cake. We eat this cupcake, and he would pick it out. We would go to like a vegan bakery that we have here. And so, we always would make it fun for him. So I feel like there's ways to navigate being around in a non-vegan world for children, because I know that's a big worry. I had a big worry about this, like what is it going to be like for him? And thankfully,
Mm-hmm.
we always found ourselves in groups where people were kind and understanding. So um, I did also join a vegan group of parents early on. I kind of stumbled on it by accident because I was at a veg fest and somebody had posted a vegan moms group. And I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the little flyer and I joined. It was a Facebook group. And I'm actually running that group now.
Oh,
But
wow.
Yeah, so we met, other vegan kids. Like I hosted a potluck in my house, and to this day, this was like 8 years ago. To this day, these kids play together now,
Aw.
and we get to hang out with them. And if my son goes to their house, we know that they're going to be able to eat whatever they have because everything's vegan there. So that definitely is a relief when you find like a little vegan community of vegan parents. So it can be quite helpful because it's just like less stress for the parents. But if that's not the case, if you don't have that, I would say there are ways around it because it's not always the case, that you're going to find other vegan parents around. But yeah, so I think it's manageable. It's something that it definitely caused me a lot of stress at times, but now looking back, I feel like I was probably doing it more to myself. It actually was. So yeah.
Yeah, because that's charting new territory, right?
Yes.
It's one thing when you're being vegan for yourself. It's another when you're raising a tiny little human being
Yeah.
as a vegan and then in a non-vegan world and navigating the challenges that can come up. And now with all the vegan products out there, I think it makes it so much easier for kids
Mhm.
because there's like regular grocery stores are now carrying vegan ice cream where that wasn't even the case like
Yeah.
6 years ago now, 5, 6 years ago. Now, like all the big brands now are a lot of them are making vegan ice cream as
Yeah.
well as an option. So it's so easy now to much easier
Yeah.
to find things for kids or especially for things like parties where you wouldn't have been able to find those things as easily before. So yeah, you shared some great tips already, but one of the things I wanted to ask you is what are some tips that you have for vegan parents that are out there or any soon to be parents who want to raise their kids vegan?
Yeah, I would say, trusting yourself is important. I would say that's a big one. Because like I said, you're gonna hear so much from different groups, people you want to trust, like doctors and other authority type of people that are gonna school, there's people at the school that might say things to you. So I feel that always trusting that you know what you're doing and you're doing the right thing for your child and for the planet and for the animals. I think it's really important. And then you know, doing some research and looking for resources if you feel that you need it, like some help with understanding things. I feel like there could be, I haven't been in touch with a lot of books lately in terms of like kid nutrition, so I wouldn't really necessarily know what's out there right now. But there's information out there, and usually, from my understanding and my research prior has always been that as long as it's balanced, they're getting their vitamins and they're getting their legumes and veggies and whatever else and proteins and starches, it's okay. Like it's going to turn out okay. It's sometimes we just worry so much like, oh my God, did he eat all the things? And it's okay. Like even for us, we don't have to eat all the things in one meal or sometimes not even the same day, like it's okay. It all balances out. So maybe not stressing so much about it. And then finding ways to make your child, I don't want to say fit, but also um, be in certain situations where he feels included.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like I was talking about the parties and um, any other situation that includes food, I feel like it's important that they have something similar. So other times we would go to a birthday party where they would have a pizza party, let's say. We would bring his own pizza. So
Mm-hmm.
he would be eating the same food the other kids were eating. So he didn't feel like, okay, this is strange, I'm over here eating a salad or I don't know, something, like no, he's eating the same thing all the kids are eating. And usually kids are like, okay, whatever, it's a pizza. And there wasn't anybody really looking into that or questioning it. So I would say that's always been very helpful for us. Um, and then having other vegan parents around, I think is quite helpful. Um, they can be, supportive, and they understand what you're going through. And then again, the peace of mind of being able to be with them and know that if your child ate a snack from the other kid, it's okay because it's vegan, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, and just being, I think support on everything is so important, and creating community, especially as a vegan parent, I think is so important. So sometimes I understand it can't be done in person. So even if it's like an online group, something, that just helps you feel perhaps less alone, or, not so on your own in your journey, especially if you don't have others around you. So, and as a parent, especially a vegan parent, other people, family members might be saying things to you that don't agree with what you're doing, that can happen. And again, your your little tribe that you create of your vegan friends, they are the ones that are going to help you. Other people might have good intentions, but they don't necessarily know
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about.
Right.
So it can feel lonely. So yeah, I would say anytime you can, feel like you are part of a group, I think that's so important as a parent too.
Those are all really great tips. And also, I just want to add, like, I've seen vegan parents on Instagram who are recipe creators share
Mm.
different things that they feed their
Yeah.
kids. I've seen those videos come up, and their kids are happy. Like they'll make delicious sauces and really healthy pasta dishes and other different things, and some of them show the kids cooking with the parents, and
Mhm.
and so that can be a fun way of teaching them how to create
Yeah.
with vegetables too. But there are a lot of other vegan parents out there, and I think the main thing that you touched on is the support. It's so important to find that support, whether it's virtually or in person. And then you get to connect with people who have, share the same values of you that you do, and you don't have to explain yourself as much, which can be
Yes.
exhausting after a while. Um,
Yes.
I'm sure, especially as a parent. So yeah, it can I'm sure definitely be challenging. My son is already grown, so it was hard to and I have two stepsons also. They're all young adults. So it's everyone's doing their thing. My husband's doing his thing. I'm not forcing it on anyone. But but people are open to trying the stuff that I have and are supportive. So I think that's the main thing
Yeah.
for me. But like, if I could, have, raise my child vegan, if I was vegan at the very beginning of all of that, then
Yeah.
maybe I would have done that. But it's
Right.
possible, and I see that more than ever, that there's just so much out there now. So that's
Yeah, for
great.
sure. Yeah, and just like you said, like Instagram, TikTok, I'm sure there's like tons of people sharing recipes and things that their kids
Yeah.
are eating that you might not have thought that might not have thought before that would be great to incorporate and do, especially when they're younger. So yeah, I think there's so many ways to do this, and just, not worrying so much and not like freaking out about all the little things about it, I think is one of the main things about raising kind and vegan children. And it's one of those things like, I hope you always stay vegan, but I don't know, it's one of those things like,
Yeah.
will they stay vegan? I have no idea. But
That's a
all I
good
can do
point.
is always do my best and share why we are vegan. And
Yeah.
and that's another piece of it, is also, talking about these things and making sure that they understand, why are we eating this cupcake at this party instead of eating the cake, and
Hmm.
is all that about. So when it's age appropriate, to speak to them about certain things, and yeah, just helping them understand the big picture of it all, I think is helpful too.
Definitely. And yeah, and explaining it to them in an age appropriate way. helping them understand why in a way to help them stay connected to it as well.
Right.
Sounds really helpful. What's a good way for people to connect with you and check out your blog as well as your other resources?
Yeah, so my website is greenluxuryliving.com, and I will have all the information on there about, blog posts, resources, my events. So if you want to participate in one of the vegan afternoon tea events, you can sign up to receive updates and information about where they're going to be. So I would definitely do that. And obviously information about my work as a vegan hospitality consultant is on there. So anybody can reach out to me on there and learn a little bit more about what I do and my services. And I will be adding information about the book as soon as I have more available on there as well. So yeah, I would say my website and also my Instagram, Green Luxury Living. I tend to share information on there as well. So yeah.
Right. I'll include all the links below. So anyone watching want to check out Angelica's website and her Instagram, you can easily do so by going to the links below this video. Well, it was really nice having you here chatting. I'm really excited for when your book comes out, and I know it's going to be a great addition to my recipe book collection. And I feel like it's much needed in the vegan community as well. So thanks for coming on and sharing about that, as well as your journey as a vegan parent. And I want to thank you all for tuning in as well, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Okay.